The data never lies, and this time, it's revealed something McLaren never wanted public. Internal analysis shows Lando Norris' car benefiting from a setup window Oscar Piastri couldn't access. Engineers say it's just adaptation, but the telemetry tells another story. And now, inside McLaren, calm voices are cracking because Piastri has had enough of being second to data manipulation. From the start, something felt off. Norris's car darted into turn 1 with bite and rotation alive, sharp, dancing on the limit. Piastri's McLaren, by contrast, felt heavier, duller. Fronts washing mid-corner, he reported on lap 5. Copy that, we'll monitor, came the reply. He didn't push back. He trusted the data always had. But the tone in his engineer's voice was different. Too measured. Too quick to move on. And in a sport where millimeters decide everything, tone can mean more than telemetry. By lap 12, the gap began to open. Norris was pulling away, not dramatically, but steadily. The telemetry overlay told a story that didn't make sense. Norris's energy deployment was sharper out of every low-speed corner, his hybrid light flickering just a fraction earlier. "We're losing ERS efficiency," said Piastri's engineer. "Try to adjust lift-off timing." He did. Nothing changed. "It's not the driving," Oscar replied calmly. "It's in the delivery." The engineer hesitated. Understood. But that hesitation, that brief pause, told him everything. Inside the McLaren garage, the engineers knew what he had just felt. The data confirmed it. Norris's car was operating in a different setup window. The difference was small: a shift in the torque response curve, a subtle change in brake migration, an extra pulse of hybrid power that let Norris rotate the car faster into corners. Legal, yes. Equal? Not exactly. "They're running different calibrations," whispered one mechanic to another. "And only one of them knows." By lap 25, Piastri's frustration started to show, not in his voice, but in the way he drove. His inputs became more aggressive, braking deeper, pushing the car into corners to find what wasn't there. "Balance still off," came the radio. "It's consistent," he said flatly. "Just not fast." To the casual viewer, it sounded like composure. To the team, it sounded like suspicion. He wasn't angry, not yet. But the tone had changed. The quiet calm that defined Oscar Piastri was giving way to something colder, sharper, more dangerous: awareness. When the race ended, both McLarens finished inside the top 5. On paper, it was another success. But as Piastri climbed from the car, visor still down, he didn't look toward his crew. He looked at Norris's MCL 39 just for a second, as if studying it. Later, during debrief, the engineers would replay the footage and notice it too. That look wasn't curiosity. It was recognition. He already knew. Somewhere inside the machine, hidden beneath the numbers, was an advantage that didn't belong to him. The glass walls of McLaren's performance department were fogged with the dull light of post-race exhaustion. Engineers huddled around glowing screens, replaying the Mexican Grand Prix lap by lap. The official debrief hadn't even begun, but something already felt wrong. The data didn't line up. Norris's car was faster, yes, but not in the way it should have been. "It's not driving style," muttered one analyst, scrolling through telemetry traces. "It's configuration." Andrea Stella entered the room quietly, coffee in hand, the weight of leadership visible in his posture. "Show me." The engineer switched the main screen to the overlay: Norris in blue, Piastri in orange. The difference was surgical. "Here," the analyst said, pointing to turn 6. Lando's energy deployment starts 0.18 seconds earlier. "Look at the torque spike, his car rotates instantly." Oscar stays stable longer, then loses momentum. Stella frowned. "That's brake migration," he said. "Did both cars run the same map?" Silence. One engineer exchanged a nervous glance with another. "No," came the answer. "Lando's map was updated on Friday. Oscar's wasn't." The room went still. "Why?" Stella asked. "Driver preference," the engineer replied carefully. He didn't request the change. Stella's tone hardened. He didn't know about the change. Another engineer shifted uncomfortably. It was part of an experimental calibration package for energy recovery. We only had one usable version. Stella exhaled, rubbing his forehead. And you put it on the lead car. No one spoke. In the silence, the hum of the air conditioning sounded like thunder. When Piastri entered the room 20 minutes later, the atmosphere changed instantly. Calm, composed, unreadable. "What's wrong?" he asked. Stella gestured to the screen. "We found a small calibration difference between your car and Lando's. It wasn't intentional." Oscar leaned forward, studying the traces without speaking. He didn't blink. "So," he said slowly, "his car rotated better because his brake migration map was newer." Stella nodded. "It shouldn't have made that much difference." "But it did," Piastri replied. For a moment, nobody moved. Stella tried to explain procedure, development cycles, limited test data, but Oscar wasn't listening to excuses. His voice stayed level, but the sharpness underneath it was unmistakable. "You don't give two drivers different cars and call it development," he said. "You call it advantage." The engineers looked down. It wasn't anger in his tone, it was clarity. The calm of someone who had already done the math and didn't like the answer. Stella sighed. "We'll align both configurations for Brazil." "That's not the point," Oscar replied. "The point is, you thought I wouldn't notice." The sentence hit harder than any accusation could. It wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. The engineers felt it, the shift in power inside the room. For months, Piastri had been the quiet, analytical half of McLaren's driver pairing. Now, his silence was the loudest thing in the building. "We didn't mean to disadvantage you," Stella said carefully. "Then prove it," Oscar replied. "Make it equal, not later, not next race. Now." As the meeting ended, he stood, adjusted his headset, and left the room without another word. No theatrics. No confrontation. Just the certainty of someone who had already decided what comes next. When the door closed, Stella turned to his engineers. "Fix it," he said. "Before this becomes something we can't control." The next 48 hours inside McLaren were a blur of meetings, data audits, and damage control. Officially, the team called it a calibration oversight. Unofficially, everyone knew it was a crisis. The discovery that Norris's car had access to a newer brake migration map and, by extension, a livelier chassis sent shockwaves through the technical department. "We can't let this leak," one senior engineer muttered. "If the press gets hold of this, it's bias all over again." Stella's response was cold and simple. "It's not about leaks. It's about trust. And right now, we've lost his." That his was Oscar Piastri. And unlike most drivers in his position, he didn't go to war with emotion, he went to work with data. By Tuesday morning, he'd already requested full access to his Mexico telemetry. Every parameter, every frame, he told his engineer. "If we're talking equality, I want to see it." They hesitated. "Oscar, that's internal data, then make it external," he interrupted, voice steady but final. He wasn't demanding power. He was demanding accountability in the only language Formula One respects: numbers. When the data came through, he didn't react immediately. He studied it like an engineer, not a driver. The hybrid delivery, the torque transitions, the brake bias migration curves all plotted side by side with Norris's reference laps. Within minutes, he spotted the pattern. "He's getting earlier torque recovery at exit," he said quietly. "And the damping curve on his rear suspension, it's sharper. That's why he can rotate on throttle. My setup won't do that, not with this calibration." The engineer tried to explain it away. "Lando's driving style demands more rotation and mine doesn't deserve it," he cut in, still calm. The silence that followed was answer enough. That night, McLaren's control systems team began rewriting the calibration software to match both cars. But inside the factory, not everyone agreed. Norris is in the title fight, one strategist said. If you equalize them now, you risk both. Stella didn't hesitate. We don't build hierarchies here, he said. We build fairness. Yet even he knew the politics were alive. McLaren's board had made Norris the face of the brand. Piastri was supposed to be the quiet rookie, fast, reliable, loyal. But loyalty changes when truth does. In the simulator bay, Piastri was already testing the equalized setup. The difference was immediate. The car rotates, he said over the intercom, a trace of satisfaction in his usually flat tone. That's the feeling I've been missing. His engineer responded cautiously. Telemetry looks good. You're matching Lando's data now. Piastri smiled faintly. Not matching, he said. Beating. He knew what that meant, and so did the room watching him. If the car had truly been unequal, then every lap he drove within a tenth of Norris had been overperformance. With parity, the numbers were going to speak louder than any quote ever could. By the next morning, the internal reports confirmed it. With the same calibration, Piastri's simulated race pace was faster by 0.3. He's extracting more efficiency from identical input, the systems analyst said. Stella nodded. He's proving it wasn't attitude, it was access. That line spread through the garage like wildfire. Access. A single word that meant everything in Formula One: access to information, to technology, to trust. And now, Piastri had all three. When Stella called him in for a follow-up meeting, expecting anger, he got something else entirely. Oscar sat down, calm, collected, a small stack of printouts in his hands. You fixed the problem, he said. Good. He placed the papers on the desk: graphs, telemetry overlays, corner traces. Now let's make sure it doesn't happen again. Stella met his eyes. We won't. You will, Piastri replied. Because it's Formula One. But next time, I'll know sooner. The remark wasn't arrogance. It was awareness, the kind that earns quiet respect, even from those who underestimate you.